Okay, this is AJ, November 2nd on Wednesday here in Texas. It's a nice day out. I didn't have time to wash the car or detail it up. That's what it looks like sitting in the driveway. There's a cold front coming in, so I wanted to get it done before then. So, here's the car. It's kind of bright here, nice day. It sits here in this carport for now. And it is, you can still see, even regardless of how dusty it is, that the paint is in good shape, and there's a lot of reflection that's there on that clear coat. This is extremely dusty. If I put my hand out there and just kind of touch it a little bit, you can already see the dust coming off on the car there. So I'm going to walk through the problems and through the things that we talked about on email. That way you have a clear understanding of what's going on with the car. And it's sitting in front of my vintage BMW 75/5 motorcycle back there. But right here is the first thing. Windshield wipers have been removed. This has been all painted with the car. The car is basically a metallic emerald green. It's a pretty rare color, and it gets an enormous amount of attention. So it doesn't have wipers. That's probably the number one thing. This whole part has been resprayed, the whole hood, both wings, and the chrome has been redone on this. The only part that didn't come in when we were redoing the front is this eyebrow. This eyebrow has been banged up. Somebody backed into it. And that's one of the reasons I had the whole front end repainted. And that eyebrow is about $50. So the only reason that's not on there is it is very difficult to find. But I do have an extra grill. The grill is a little bit warped, so I just put a new one on there. Those are tough to find too. They're about $300. So I have an extra one if that comes in handy. So that's one of the parts, and this chrome is here, and it's got the eye holes that are here. If you can see pretty close up, that's what that looks like. And that eye hole is for, there's kind of a front bar that goes there on some of the models, on some of the 63s. As far as flaws in the paint go, before we go into the interior, when these trim panels are put on, all the original trim is there. When these trim panels come on, the paint's a little bit wet. When you screw it down, sometimes it tends to wrinkle a little bit on that wet paint. So there's a couple of those spots that are here, and I think that it might be on the other side too. So let's walk over to this side, and this is what I'm talking about. You can kind of see it if I turn it at an angle. These two wrinkles that are right here, this comes from when the paint is wet and you start twerking down the trim pieces. That's what happens, is it wrinkles like that. As far as other paint imperfections, if we come down here to the rocker panel on the driver's side, and this is the trim that runs down the side of the car here. If we come right here, you can see that there's some road damage, some road chips that are there along the door and along this rocker. Those are fairly recent. The paint is still pretty thick and malleable, and any decent, competent body shop will be able to match that, because mine did, and it wasn't too big of a problem. So you can see the car's lines are straight, and that the exterior looks all good, and the exterior trim is in a good shape. The other thing that we talked about, if we go back here, those antennas are not hooked up, so they're just there. Most of them are not hooked up. So the back is in good shape. Chrome is in good shape. All the lights are in working order. This side, you can see that these panels line up well. The only exception here is that there's some weather stripping that's needed between these two windows. This gap right here, this gets howly at speed. But the car never came with that. I don't know where that is. So, but that is the only part here. This may look like a bump, but that's actually the joint for this for the triangle vent. And that basically is the exterior of the car. Let's go ahead and go to the inside. We can point out some of the things that are going on there. So when you open the car, this is basically what you get. It's all interior. The interior is all original, and then it's still got this green type beige color combination, which is actually not bad. The carpet here has a gap. I'm not sure what that's all about, but that's why I recommended a carpet kit. And this carpet tends to look pretty dingy just because of the color, so I would replace that. Now, as far as the window pulls go, this is where the primaries go, and this is stripped, so it doesn't turn. These turn just fine. This is for the secondary that opens this vent. My truck actually is just you just open it with your hand, but this one's actually got a turn for it. What I've been doing is taking the actual handle that's here. It's here. It'll fit there. And if I need it to come down, when I push it in and turn it, the window does actually go down. So it just requires a little bit of that, and it does move the window. It does operate the window. That's how I've been kind of dealing with it. But you see, it just kind of spins freely if you don't put any pressure on it. So that's why I think they need to be replaced. I dropped it here. So that's why I feel like it needs to be replaced. I'm gonna go ahead and roll it up. I leave it pretty much rolled up, you know, when it's just sitting here. And this is the door opening lever that's here. And in the back, there's another window pull for the secondary window. This one works just fine. You can see I'm turning it. The window's coming down. I'm going to roll it back up here. And it's an on-post car, so both of these will roll down. As far as the steering wheel goes, this is my favorite part of the car. It is made out of metal. It's a recreation of the original wheel, but it's shortened down to a 14-inch diameter. So it's a very high quality part. It is on a tilt only IDET steering column, so you can see that tilts it, and that's how that works. So this column is set up for this column shifter automatic, and this is for the turn signals, which are operational. I did replace this switch box here with a new switch for headlights, and that switch was broken, but now the headlights are operational, so that switch is there. Wiper switch obviously disconnected. I have no idea what this vent switch does. And this is the paddle box for the air ride, and this was the valet switch for the alarm that I mentioned was disconnected. This is the paddle system. This is the front, and these two are the rear, and the compressor switch is down underneath here, kind of where my fingers are. In between here's a little paddle, and then this is the vent one, primary vent for the driver's side on the air AC kit. So we go over. This is kind of where the this trim panel starts to warp a little bit here, and the ashtray is a little uneven, and this kind of like issue here is where I would start replacing. This is the Recreations 2-post stereo with the iPod hookup that I had installed, and as I mentioned, there's no key in this ignition. This is a little bit torn up here. That's why this needs a new part. There's no key in this ignition here, but I can just turn it and it will fire up the dash. So it does not require a key. That's just because the cylinder is worn out. Going over here to the glove box. I apologize, the sun's kind of getting in the way here. The glove box does not have anything in there. Right, that basket is removed, and there's some ducting for the AC, but that is about it. This is the AC unit that's down there. That's the passenger side, and the rest of that is basically straightforward. This is the window pull on the passenger side, and then the passenger side rear. You can see that the interior is in pretty good shape. There are no tears or rips or any of that. This is the back seat. That's the rear deck. That's the pass. There's a hole for the band pass box that's in the trunk. 2 6x9s. This is all 1-inch MDF that's housing these. It's been all wrapped in the same color interior cloth. The headliner that I mentioned is a little bit floppy. You know, if I push this, it kind of does that. And so when there's, you know, when the windows are down, it kind of flops around on the highway. That's what I would get kind of refitted if I was going to do that. But the headliner's in good shape. It just needs to have that done. And you know, I mentioned that weather stripping when we were on the outside of the car. And as far as the interior trim goes, this is kind of what, you know, it's kind of hard to see from here, but the dash and interior trim, they're not in bad shape, but you can see that they're a little bit weathered from, you know, just from being out in the sun. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the car on, and I think before we do that, let me just go under here, take a look at the electric system. This is where all the paddles and car wiring is set up. So you can see it's a little bit of a mess, which, you know, the Impala is a little bit of a, I mean, the truck is a little bit of a mess too. And even to make it a show car, this would all have to be loomed up and labeled and all that good stuff. The controls for the AC are right there. They're mounted underneath this this dash complex. Okay, so I'm gonna turn the car on, charge up the box so we can lift it up and take a look underneath. So if I turn it on, digital dash fires up. There are the gauges right there. I have not started the car in a month's time, so it shows about 12 volts that are there, 30% fuel. So let's see how it fires up. I'm going to give it a couple of turns. Maybe some old gas, so let's give it again another go. Alright. So we got life in it now, and it usually only takes about 1 or 2 turns, but like I said, it's been about a month. I'm going to reach down here and turn the compressor on. You can kind of hear that it's a bit of a loud idle, so I'm going to let it sit here. And you know, I mentioned that it's been reading error, the water temp, so that the sending unit probably has to be redone. And this is a Dakota digital dash that's here in and it looks good. There's some glare during the day, but at night it really pops. And the rest of that stuff works. It's idling. If I were to give it some gas, you can see that moves. And the rest of that stuff works. And that says oil pressure, voltage, and fuel percent is what those 3 say. Water temperature is at an error. So I'm gonna, it's choking down a little bit. So the compressor is on back there. So we're gonna take a look outside. And this is the profile view, and then I'm going to send another video of it being raised up to maximum height. So I'm going to back up here and get down to the ground. This is basically all the air out of the car right now as it sits. So the car is basically as low as you can get it without it having the frame rails on the ground. If I were to get underneath, that exhaust manifold is maybe a ½ inch off the ground. That's right there. So it's low as it sits right now. So I'm gonna let this charge up, and we're gonna start another video with us inflating the bags and going underneath.